Catherine Moner. I'm a student studying English literature and French here at ASU and at Barrett the Honors College. And today I'm going to talk about how you can relate information management theory and literature, because that's my major and that's what I'm studying. So first off, you might ask why I am in a class that's listed under the engineering school in specifically the construction prefects, and something that's very much related to business as well, when none of my majors at all relate to that. And the answer that I've come up with is just that the principles of IMT relate to every facet of life. And so since I am in this class learning about the natural laws and the different principles, I wanted to relate it to what I am most passionate about, and that is reading literature. I also enjoy writing, but specifically for this presentation, I'm just going to speak about reading literature. So I have these three questions. What can be learned from the hero? Who decides what the book is about? And can we reread books? Can we get anything out of them at that point? And those are pretty much just the questions that we're going to look at with IMT and see how it relates. So first off, what is a hero? A hero is a literary archetype, and an archetype, if you don't know, is just a character that follows a certain pattern in each story. And some of those patterns that you find throughout stories are like they have common morals that they follow, but they also break tradition. So they go against what is expected of them and what is expected in society in some ways. They also act very quickly, mostly just because they have information about what they're doing and they act on that information. They learn from their mistakes. That's one quality of a hero, is that sometimes they make their own little mistakes, but in the end they learn from them, apply the information that they've learned, and come back to do better. And lastly, they acknowledge the concept of no control. So the characters in literature who are heroes normally don't blame things on others. They view it completely as their own actions are the things that they control, and anything else they don't try to control others or expect others to listen to them in any way. So all of these qualities are type A qualities, which means that you could call a hero a type A personality. And I have some examples here on the side. You have Katniss Everdeen, Frodo, Sherlock Holmes, and Elizabeth Bennet. And all of these characters follow those same ideas of having common morals, things that the reader or viewer can relate to, but also breaking from tradition and really trying to make something new and trying to use the information that they have to do better in a way. So another example that you could look at is Harry Potter. Within the Harry Potter series, Harry is an adolescent for much of the plot, pretty much all of it. So he's naturally more prone to make mistakes and to have emotional trials, but his cycle of learning moves unpredictably fast for someone his age. So that's one identifier that he is type A from the beginning. He accepts that he's a wizard very quickly, for example, and he isn't too surprised about all of the things that he learns throughout time, or if he is surprised, then he gets used to them fairly easily, and he doesn't seem to try to reject any of the new things in his life. And then as he goes on throughout time, he does follow those common morals, the things that people agree to be true or good, but he also works to stand out from the rest of the crowd. He's the chosen one, which might seem a bit cliche, but it's really just a success story in a way about how one person who is a type A person may start out lower on the cycle of learning, and get faster, get better, accept more information, and learn from their mistakes. So in the end, he accepts that he has no control over some of the things in his life, and instead just focuses on what he can do himself. So overall, Harry's a bit flawed, but he is also type A, so that appeals to readers and viewers again. So what can we learn from heroes in IMT? Well, first, as I've said throughout the last 2 slides, the cycle of learning for a hero is faster, allowing them to process and apply information more quickly. So since they have a quick speed of learning, they're able to complete their goals more efficiently than some others may. And so being type A, they're able to become role models in a way for other people who are going through this experience. Not all heroes are perfect though. Most often in like young adult literature maybe, they will have a harder time accepting some of the information that they receive, and they'll make mistakes again and again before they learn from them. And that just shows that they're still on the lower end of their learning spectrum, I guess. But eventually they do kind of skyrocket, like we've seen in the graphs for type A characters. And lastly, not all characters have to be heroes. So even though heroes are the main characters in these stories, they aren't necessarily the most important, because as we've learned in IMT, everyone is important to an event, equally important, no matter their characteristics or their role in it. Everybody's important. Okay, so then moving on to reader response theory. This is really just the question about who decides what the book is about. And while many would say that it's the author who decides that, since they're the one who wrote it, the answer that makes most sense with IMT is actually that the reader creates the meaning of the text. So everybody reads the same text when they're reading a book, and it's the words that the author wrote. But because everyone is different, they will all understand the story in a different way. So as we've learned in class again, the initial conditions set the final conditions. So because each set of initial conditions for each person will differ because of their experiences and their past, the outcomes will differ. So that means that the event is different for every person, and every person will have a different understanding. So in this picture, we have an example of this concept. The Dementors in the picture are the creatures from Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which guard the wizard prison because they suck out happiness and will from the people who are imprisoned there. And someone who read or watched the Harry Potter movies or books may merely accept these creatures for what they are and just accept them as mythical creatures. But someone else may see them as representing something deeper, and this opens up many possibilities. J.K. Rowling has said that she thought that the Dementors represented depression because she struggled with that, especially at the time that she was writing this book, and she sort of understood the text in that way. But for someone else who's living in present day, you might see it as a symbol of police brutality, or of fear, or a reminder of a dark past, or just the options go on and on for every person. It all depends, though, on what a person has experienced and what is on their molecule at the time that they are reading the book or watching the film. So who decides what a book is about? In a way, everyone does then, because everybody will have their own understanding of the book. So does this mean that they can't reconcile their views? Not at all. It simply means that everyone will have their own individual understanding, which means that if you observe other people's understandings and try to understand that, then they will be able to, or I guess you will be able to see their side a little bit more easily and see how their experiences have affected their understanding. And in that way, you're just gathering more information. So then, lastly, is it wrong to reread books? I've heard a lot of people say, like, oh, I've already read that book, I don't need to read it again or anything. But going back to reader response theory, the reader creates the value of the text. So if the initial conditions change during a time when the reader has already read the book and picks it back up, then that means that they're going to have a different understanding of the text. And because they have that different understanding, it means that they've absorbed new information once they have finished the book again. So really it's just another cycle of learning where they're going through and applying their own concepts, perceiving new information, and applying that information again. And lastly, if you love it, do it, because it is something that makes you happy and something that hopefully will also give you more information about yourself. So in conclusion, the hero gives readers an example of a type A character, someone to strive to be like. The character doesn't need to be perfect because that will appeal to more type C people. And everyone will understand the text differently, even if they have already read it. But that just means that you'll have a bunch of different understandings in a way. So reading is much like the process of learning, in which more can always be observed and applied. Readers may see the same qualities that they have in a hero and want to accentuate them more. And lastly, I think that reading is one of the most introspective events that someone can take part in. So it benefits readers by helping them better understand themselves and looking at themselves for information about the world. So thank you for listening to this presentation. I have this quote here that says, "I think of life as a good book. The further you get into it, the more it begins to make sense." So I know that I love reading. That's why I'm doing it as my major. But many other people, I would say, aren't as interested in reading. They might think, oh, it's just not for me, but really I would suggest that they haven't found the right book yet, because there's a million different stories out there that someone can pick up and empathize with and learn from. So if you think that right now you feel that way and that you haven't found the right book, then maybe go pick up a book and continue this process of finding new information, processing it, and applying it to your own life and changing. So yeah, in the end, I think that with IMT and literature, the best thing to do is just to keep reading and to keep learning. Thank you.